Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. More than 300 Korean nationals currently detained in the immigration raids at Hyundai's plant in the United States are now getting ready to return home. Although the Korean government said they will be leaving the country voluntarily, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security says many of those detained through the operation in Georgia will be deported. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw a test of its new solid-fuel missile engine. This comes after the North said this type of missile can be used to fuel its next-generation Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missile. Palestinian gunmen killed at least 6 people after they opened fire at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Israeli police said the 2 attackers were killed at the scene. We begin in the United States, where more than 300 Korean nationals detained for the 5th day are now getting ready to fly back home. While the Korean consul in Washington says the process is proceeding smoothly, U.S. officials have taken a much firmer tone on the matter. Our Park Eun-woo starts us off.
Preparation is underway to bring the Korean nationals detained in a U.S. immigration raid last week back home. While they face 2 options, leaving voluntarily or staying in custody and going through trial, most have reportedly chosen to return after meeting with the Korean Consul General in Washington.
We're now going to start the process. We're doing our best.
Those that decided to return are set to board a charter flight as early as Wednesday, though a delay is possible. The consul said the process is moving smoothly with the cooperation of the U.S. Detainees will be assigned an alien registration number for immigration records, which they need to depart. Amid concerns of potential disadvantages in the future, including a 5-year ban from coming back to the U.S., the consul says such a ban does not apply to nationals leaving voluntarily. But when asked about the detainees, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security struck a firmer tone.
Well, people that are in this country illegally need to know right now today that they have an opportunity to go home before they are detained. They are going to be deported. A few of those had criminal activity beyond just being here past final removal orders, and they will face the consequences for that.
To discuss the matter and details on potential disadvantages, Foreign Minister Cho Hyun, who is currently in the U.S., is set to meet with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio as early as Tuesday. Cho said he'll make efforts to review current employment visas with the U.S. to prevent such incidents from happening again. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has overseen a test of a new high-thrust solid-fuel missile engine built using composite carbon fiber. The North state-run news agency on Tuesday said that the latest development marks a major step forward in strengthening its nuclear forces. The test was carried out on Monday by the regime's Missile Administration and a Chemical Materials Research Center. This comes just a week after Kim visited an institute that developed the technology. During the visit, Kim unveiled plans for the next-generation Hwasong-20 intercontinental ballistic missile, which is expected to be powered by the new engine. And today, September 9th, marks the 77th anniversary of North Korea's founding after the regime was established in 1948. And this morning, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the test of a missile engine developed by the regime, as we just heard, that could be used in long-range missiles. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Christopher Goding, Professor of Political Science at Kookmin University. Professor Goding, thanks for coming in today.
Good morning.
So this solid-fuel missile engine is something that could be used in ICBMs, right? North Korean state media claim this was a major leap in strengthening its nuclear forces. What are your thoughts on this?
It's always difficult to assess North Korean nuclear capacities because the only documents we have are, as you say, provided by North Korea themselves. What we can say from the military experts I've been able to read this morning is that, of course, this missile represents an improvement based on the previous launch that took place in December 2022, but no technological leap. If you like, it is an improvement. It is a bigger, more efficient version of what existed before. What I think to be more interesting here is that, you see, if it was solely about improving North Korean nuclear capacities, this test would have been conducted secretly. Now we have Kim Jong-un attending the test and pictures, videos that you have broadcast being then shown all over the world. So what I think to be interesting here is it's not simply about North Korean nuclear capacities, it is about North Korea wanting these nuclear capacities to be known all over the world. It is about North Korea taking a more aggressive stance politically.
I see. And marking the 77th anniversary of its founding today, is China's Xi Jinping also sent a congratulating message to North Korea's Kim Jong-un. We recently saw leaders of North Korea, China, and Russia get together for the first time in decades in Beijing last week. What's your take on their trilateral cooperation, and will South Korea, the United States, and Japan try to further strengthen ties against that bloc in response?
So precisely, this nuclear test is to be understood within this context. In fact, what is North Korea today in international relations? North Korea is a sort of scarecrow, is a sort of watchdog that China and Russia are using anytime they're unhappy with the West, to scare the West and, of course, their allies, including North Korea and Japan, away. So now we've got Russia, who's unhappy about the West giving some military support to Ukraine. What we've got is China, extremely unhappy about Trump's tariffs. And as a result, they're using, so as I say, North Korea as a sort of scarecrow then to scare Western powers away. Hence this nuclear test that just took place. So now, of course, the problem for South Korea is that South Korea is carried away and forced to play this game that is a very dangerous game from the South Korean point of view. There will be a need for the West and Western allies, South Korea, Japan, etc., to stick together. But of course, it's very difficult because of Donald Trump himself. For the West to stick together, there will be a need the US to be willing to cooperate. And as you know, it is not the case today, unfortunately.
I see. And we saw North Korea's Kim Jong-un appearing on the global stage for the first time last week. And it's also now getting ready to send a vice ministerial level official to New York for the UN General Assembly for the first time in 7 years, I believe. What are your thoughts on this development?
Well, in this context represents a huge opportunity for North Korea. For decades now, basically nobody was willing to cooperate with North Korea. Even China was somehow relegating North Korea to the background. Now, what we have is China and Russia taking, as I said, a more aggressive stance to push for their interests. Kim Jong-un knows that, and so Kim Jong-un is seizing this opportunity to get back into usual official diplomatic channels. And so what all of this means is that Kim Jong-un is trying to take advantage of the current state of affairs to look, to look dependable, to look normal again. Hence, so he's sending, as you said, high-level official to the United Nations in New York.
I see, right. And as for South Korea and the Japanese defense ministers met in Seoul yesterday, and this marks the first official visit by a Japanese defense minister to Seoul in a decade. What's your take on the two countries' security cooperation?
It's very simple. On the one hand, it's needed because the US, for now, cannot be trusted as much as they used to be a few years ago. So there is a need for a stronger cooperation between Korea and Japan. The problem in this is Japan. First, because Japan, as you know, does not really have any valuable, any meaningful military forces. Since World War II, Japan has been banned from having a real army, and I'm not sure the South Korean public opinion would like Japan to have a large army again. And second, the other issue you have, as you know, is the political instability in Japan. The Prime Minister has just quit. This political crisis in Japan, for now, we cannot know when it's going to end. And of course, it is difficult for Japan to sign new cooperation agreements and the like without a stable government. So long story short, this cooperation is needed, but for now, Japan is in no position to fulfill the basic requirements for this alliance to mean anything and anything efficient or meaningful, unfortunately.
I see. All right, Professor Garang, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight as always.
Thanks for having me.
South Korean President Lee Jae-myung, who has made national unity a central pledge, sat down with the leaders of South Korea's two main parties on Monday. Our top office correspondent Song Yu-jin has the details.
Standing side by side, President Lee Jae-myung and the chairman of South Korea's two major parties began their first ever meeting by joining hands in unity. On Monday, President Lee hosted Democratic Party leader Chung Cheong-rae and People Power Party leader Chang Dong-hyuk for a lunch meeting at the Yongsan presidential office, reaffirming that national unity remains his top priority.
민주당 출신의 대통령이긴 하지만 이제는 국민의 대통령, 모두의 대통령이 되어야 한다고 생각합니다. 또 야당을 통해 들리는 우리 국민들의 목소리도 최대한 많이 듣도록 노력하고 듣는 것을 넘어서서 국정에 모든 국민들의 목소리가 공평하게 반영될 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다.
President Lee, who himself was an opposition leader under the previous administration, called for narrowing differences where possible while moving together on overlapping policy pledges. During the campaign, both parties had promised to strengthen the AI and semiconductor industries, ease burdens on small businesses, and expand renewable energy development. Though the DP and PPP remain divided on some key issues, such as the DP's push to expand the powers of ongoing special counsel investigations, both leaders agreed on the need for bipartisan cooperation.
On diplomacy, security, and defense, the parties must put the national interest above partisan gains. I hope today's meeting leads to more constructive dialogue going forward.
For the sake of the people's livelihoods and the economy, we ask the president to create and keep open a permanent channel of communication between the government, ruling, and opposition parties.
Through Monday's event, the president and the two parties agreed to create a consultative body on livelihood-related matters, with the details to be finalized later. Meanwhile, after the lunch meeting, President Lee held a one-on-one with Chairman Chang, who was elected to his post last month. Their talk centered on restoring cooperative politics, with Chang proposing measures on youth employment and capital gains tax adjustments, and President Lee responding that the government would review the suggestions positively. Eyes are now on whether the rival parties and the presidential office can actually turn their handshakes into genuine cooperation, at a time when South Korean politics is seen as deeply polarized. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Over in the Middle East, 6 Israelis are dead and more are wounded after 2 Palestinian gunmen opened fire at a bus stop in Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister condemned the attacks while also warning residents of Gaza City to leave, as Israel plans to ramp up airstrikes on the enclave. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
In one of the deadliest shooting attacks in Jerusalem in recent years, 6 Israelis are dead and 8 others wounded after police say 2 Palestinian gunmen on Monday drove up to a crowded bus stop in Ramat and opened fire. According to Israeli media, the victims include 5 men aged between 25 and 79 and a 60-year-old woman. An off-duty soldier and a civilian returned shots, killing both attackers on the spot. While no group has claimed responsibility, Hamas praised the attack. Visiting the scene, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is at war with terrorism.
We are at war, an intensified war against terror on multiple fronts.
He noted that security forces had prevented hundreds of attacks in the occupied West Bank this year, but unfortunately not this morning. Netanyahu added that the military and police are now encircling villages around Ramallah in pursuit of anyone who aided the attackers, vowing to apprehend them and take even stronger steps. While sending condolences to families of the 6 victims, Netanyahu warned Gaza City residents to leave now, hours after Israel said it would ramp up airstrikes on the enclave.
I promised you a few days ago that we will take out the terror towers in Gaza, and that is exactly what we are doing. And this is why I say to the residents of Gaza, I take this opportunity, listen carefully. You have been warned, leave now.
Earlier, Israel's military warned Hamas that Gaza would be destroyed if it did not disarm and release the 48 remaining hostages captured in the 2023 attacks. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Museums or exhibitions often display digital immersive media art to engage with their audiences instead of the original artwork. Our An Sung-jin takes a look at how Korean folk paintings are transformed onto a digital screen.
A tiger comes to life on a digital screen. The traditional painting has been reborn into a new form of storytelling. As technology evolves, heritage is no longer something that remains static to observers, but is transformed into immersive digital media, and that's what the studio works on, intending to further spread Korean culture and its heritage. The process often begins with high-resolution scans of the original artwork. From there, technical artists create an overall layout and add layered illustrations by focusing on the finer details like the tiger's intricate fur, whiskers, and movement. They create a digital skeleton that allows the tiger to open its mouth, crouch, or jump, all while retaining the quality of the original artwork.
The most important aspect during our work is that we keep the feeling of the original artwork, like folk paintings, when transforming it to 3D. We work on finding a balance between creating a new immersive piece, but also retaining the original purpose of the work.
The studio consults with curators and historians to ensure that the final animation is not only accurate, but that its storytelling also helps further share Korea's cultural heritage with the world. What the studio now works on is using its technology to also share different countries' traditions as well.
Most cultural heritages can be seen flatly, but viewing something in 3 dimensions makes it more vivid. The part where we expand on the stories of these artworks becomes attractive, and that's also what draws visitors to hear the story.
It goes beyond digitalizing traditional artworks. It shares culture globally and engages with the wider audience with these new eye-grabbing formats. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Beginning in Europe, the French parliament has toppled Prime Minister François Bayrou at a confidence vote over a contentious budget proposal after just 9 months in office. On Monday, the National Assembly voted overwhelmingly to reject Bayrou's government with 364 votes against and 194 for. The Prime Minister's resignation is expected to be submitted to President Macron on Tuesday. Bayrou had called the confidence vote himself, surprising even his own allies as he sought approval for an austerity package aimed at reducing France's national debt, which now stands at 114% of GDP. This included the elimination of public holidays and a freeze on government spending. However, opposition parties from both the far left and far right united against the plan, rejecting it outright. This marks the second government collapse under President Emmanuel Macron's second term, who now faces naming a fifth new prime minister in 5 years or calling fresh elections. Moving over to Nepal, where amid protests against corruption and a social media ban, at least 19 people have been killed in clashes with security forces. Following the blocking of social media platforms last week, thousands of demonstrators marched to the parliament in Kathmandu on Monday, declaring this is a protest by the new generation of Nepal. Security forces responded with tear gas, rubber bullets, and even live fire, leading to at least 19 deaths, 17 in Kathmandu and 2 in Itahari. Over 100 people were injured, including police officers. In the aftermath, the Home Minister resigned, citing moral responsibility. The government blocked 26 social media platforms last week, including Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and YouTube, stating that these platforms failed to comply with registration requirements. Authorities claim the decision was to combat the spread of hate speech, fake news, and criminal activities by users with fake identities. However, young protesters viewed this as a form of censorship amid widespread perceptions of government corruption and economic stagnation. 2 platforms have been reactivated after registering with the ministry. In Mexico, a freight train hit a double-decker bus, killing at least 10 people and injuring dozens more. The collision on Monday in an industrial area of Atlacomulco, northwest of Mexico City, happened when the bus attempted to cross the train tracks ahead of a moving train. No crossing gates or warning signals were present. The bus company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The local government said authorities are still working at the accident site and an investigation is underway. Finally, the Munich Motor Show kicked off on Monday. Europe's largest automotive expo, officially known as IAA Mobility 2025, is expected to attract over 500,000 visitors from more than 110 countries. This year's show features a record number of Chinese manufacturers, around 75 companies, challenging European brands. There's an emphasis on affordable electric vehicles, with BMW set to launch an electric SUV in early 2026. Mercedes' new electric GLC and Porsche's electric Cayenne were also in the spotlight. The motor show runs until September 14th.
We can tell that this year's autumn is approaching with lots of rain. Right now, showers are falling across the central and southern regions. Gyeongsangdo provinces, however, are seeing heavier rainfall this morning. In fact, the rest of the southern regions will see on and off showers through tomorrow, but Jeju Island might get up to rain until Thursday. Southern parts of Jeollanam-do province could see up to 100 millimeters of downpours, but Busan and surrounding areas might get up to 80 millimeters, including Jeju Island. Meanwhile, sadly, Gangneung remains under dry conditions, but here in the capital and northern parts of Korea, we'll see sunnier skies this afternoon. Seoul gets up to 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Daegu, Gwangju will be much cooler at 25 degrees with the showers. So, as you can tell, the heat wave alerts have been lifted for most parts of Korea, except on Jeju Island at a high of 29 degrees. In fact, the resort island will see frequent showers for the remainder of the week. However, afternoon heat stays in the 30s for the time being.
Now that's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.